negatively affected the life and also altered the genes. A turn for the better has only been apparent since the beginning of the new era. Thus, the average lifespan slowly rises again. The main reason for this is found in the recognition of the truth and in the positive evolution associated with it. Thus, the more the development direction turns to the truth again, the higher the average lifespan develops again, for through this, the altered genetic factors and all other life-supporting factors are also regulated again, which were badly impaired over the course of tens of thousands of years. The mass of Earth human beings moving in consciously evolving forms is still relatively very low and is often only connected with the beginnings of the real truth. Thus, no major progress has been made yet. But the more the Earth human being turns to the real truth and, with this, also to evolution in all areas, and so also in reference to life extension, the more his average age of life rises again. Seen as a whole, however, every single life form is of most important significance, namely in its thinking and in the forces released from it. All thoughts radiate as tremendous forces and encounter the other life forms, which draw these towards themselves like magnets. Depending on the quality and whether they are negative, positive, or well-balanced, they produce forces of the same kind, with corresponding effects in the life forms intercepting them. Positive forces produce positive forces, and accordingly negative forces produce negative forces, of course. Through the erroneous teachings and other deceptions of the religions, however, the Earth human being in the main is able to unfold many forces that destructively influence all life forms. These destructions are based in the fact that they impair one's age as a result of erroneous teachings and wrong lifestyles, etc., so the average age lowers. The larger the gatherings of human beings are, such as in cities, the lower the average age falls, because exactly at such places, immeasurable thought energies in terms of wrong lifestyles are released and unconsciously penetrate into fellow human beings. But also animals and many materials are impaired by these destructive forces of human irrationality and, thus, are left to an early destruction, such as iron, which normally never rusts as fast as what is currently the case on Earth and which only does so because the atmosphere and environment are destroyed by the progress produced by thoughts and ideas. The most dangerous storehouses of wrong, humanly produced thought vibration forces, however, are precious metals, precious stones, and crystals, which often accumulate these energies in deadly doses. Thus, an Earth human being may make himself guilty in the death of a fellow human being, whether consciously or unconsciously, when he cultivates and maintains thoughts and feelings in a negatively degenerated form and thereby releases uncontrollable, destructive forces. If the Earth human being wants to think and evolve correctly and in accordance with the creation, then he may neither move his way of thinking in degenerated negative paths nor in degenerated positive paths, for both are degeneracies that can produce very bad and negative consequences, so they are contrary to the creation. Right thinking and evolving express themselves through a well-balanced and neutral way of thinking and through right actions and right feelings, which then generate and send out identical forces, through which life is produced and maintained, and an evolution that is truly appropriate for creation is followed. Billy says that is very interesting. I just hope that your explanations are detailed enough because all that is still very difficult to understand for the human beings of my world. Patar says that is, unfortunately, so, as many Earth human beings still strive far too little to be able to understand certain knowledge completely. Billy says that is also often due to the fact that many human beings are much too overwhelmed with everyday worries. Patar says that may very well be, but still, that doesn't entitle them to neglect the values of the spirit. In the entire universe, there are no life forms that wouldn't have to do any consciousness-related work for their existence. Rather, they devote themselves to the valuable teaching of the spirit. Work and worries are never an excuse for disregarding the given laws and commandments. It just concerns a lack of effort because that which is material is considered more important. Billy says it is, indeed, like that, Patar, but human beings don't let themselves be convinced of that so easily. Hence, many also believe that everything has simply been placed into my lap through our benevolent foreordination, even though I had to learn a lot of things in addition to my daily work, just as every other human being must also do. Patar says you are very sparing with your self-praise, and your speech is far from the truth. You shouldn't constantly degrade yourself, if only you would finally learn that. You speak very disparagingly of yourself and your achievements. Indeed, I am many centuries older than you, but I feel the highest esteem for you. However, I can't approve your strong modesty because it doesn't correspond to your level. You're too modest, which is why you also can't get along in your world in certain matters, and I'm thinking of materialistic matters. It would be. Billy says, and now, even you are starting with that. Semyaza has already wiped me out with that. Patar says, but it would really be better for you and your family if you would just strive a little for materialism, which is now demanded in your world. You and your family must have what is necessary, in order to be able to eke out a living. You cannot exist without a certain materialism. Billy says, excuse me, Patar, you are, indeed, a very wise man, quite apart from your age, but somehow, you think wrongly, for I'm you. Patar says, do you really want to teach me? Billy says, that's exactly what I want, even though it may not suit your plans. Patar says, you are excited. Billy says, I am, I admit that, for it. Patar says, your excitement is incomprehensible to me. I am, nevertheless, just trying to help you and to revise your false notion. In my view, you act incorrectly, and you also know that very well. In your world, you cannot live without materialistic tendencies, no matter whether these tendencies are genuine or just imposed on you. But if you... Billy says, now please just listen to me very carefully. Patar says, I feel a whole lot of respect and esteem for you, and not just because of your age, which doesn't matter one bit to me. And whether you are now an Ishwish or not also has nothing to do with the matter, because for me, titles are sound and smoke and are absolutely meaningless. My respect and esteem are based on totally different things, about which you can calmly believe me, and I have. Semyaza says, you speak very disrespectfully with my father. Patar says, don't interrupt him, he should express his opinion. Billy says, thanks, Patar. I wanted to say, and I still haven't ever met a human being to whom I could offer as much respect as I do to you. This wasn't even the case with Sfath. But still, this doesn't mean that even you can't be wrong once or can't simply say rubbish, for you presumably don't know the exact background. Well, in your view, and in the view of Semyaza and all others known to me, I am a quite confounded anti-materialist. You are all absolutely right about that with certainty. That's why you all also constantly pick on me and try to rid me of my anti-materialism. You all actually believe that I could, at least, simply play around with a little bit of materialism, and you don't consider the danger that can arise from that. Consider once that, at that time almost 40 years ago, Sfath made hell for me because of damn materialism. He made me aware of the fact that a prophet, as you always flashily call me, can never do justice to his mission if he has fallen as much as a jot to materialism. I considered this very damn carefully at that time as a teenage boy and have, therefore, studied human beings thoroughly, and through this, I've ultimately come to realize that if I really want to fulfill my task, then I must truly be free of the smallest jot of materialism, for otherwise, I can never do justice to my task. I also recognize that only through the discarding of the last remnant of materialism would I, in turn, be able to give back property entrusted to me just as I received it. This, in turn, resulted in the recognition that materialism also has reference to words, speeches, and thoughts. Therefore, also words, speeches, and thoughts must be free of every little bit of materialism if one really wants to be an anti-materialist in sincerity. Hence, it is also absolutely impossible that I could simply play around with certain tendencies of materialism. Believe me, Patar, it wasn't damn easy for me to renounce materialism in the way that I am no longer even concerned for the good of my daily bread. I needed many years for this, almost 2 decades even. But I've done it. And only once I had achieved this did I also have the confidence that the slightest form of a materialistic approach could no longer throw me off course when I had to fulfill my task in the near future. This, in turn, was the assurance for me that through the removing of the last bit of materialism, I would also reflect every word said or otherwise conveyed to me very literally, as it has been entrusted to me. Through the removing of materialism, I have also become modest to an extent and in the things in which modesty is necessary. This modesty also keeps me from changing even a single iota of a word according to my own sense or discretion, when a word is transmitted or said to me. I give it all back again so verbatim, as I receive it, even if, because of this, I am often called a liar. Believe me, Patar, it's really impossible for me even to play around with materialism because this would endanger my task. Consider that from playing around, bad and bitter consequences come damn quickly, through which the best human being with the best intentions slowly but surely falls over and, one day, becomes just like he has played through a certain time. There is only a single means of defense against this, namely that one doesn't get involved in such a game under any circumstances. That would be irresponsible and bad. But on the other hand, my anti-materialism has become a conviction in me in such a stable form that it can't be reversed anymore, not even for a game, which also, in turn, means nothing other than to my own advantage. Even if you would offer me a huge treasure, by what means I could give up my anti-materialism, such an action wouldn't be possible for me. Patar says you make me think. I have never considered these things in this way. It seems to me that injustice has been done to you. It's strange, but I feel aching emotions in me for you. It is very strange, dear friend. Somehow, it seems to me more and more often, that you stand above me in many things. Semyaza says it is very painful to me. Billy says leave this nonsense, sentimentality is really out of place. Everyone, including you, wanted an earthworm who conscientiously fulfills a certain task to everyone's satisfaction. Well, I've been revamped and patched up for this, and maybe I also still have a little more to do than what I've supposed until now. That might be right, good, but with that, the matter is really done. Patar says that isn't quite so, for these things weren't considered by us. I am very sorry, I was wrong with my comments. But it is an even greater joy for me that I was allowed to receive this instruction from you. Semyaza says I am very sorry. My words earlier, which Billy says nevertheless, leave this nonsense, we aren't in a sentimentality theater. Patar says you violate your feelings. Billy says you still just have to speak of feelings. You yourselves have always said that one must have these under control. And who has that now? I for one can't complain about that. Semyaza says you are very hard. Patar says that is actually so. Billy says one has taught me this. Patar says you've learned this yourself because your school was inhumane. Billy says that's nonsense, I am, in fact, still alive. Patar says I really know this better than you because you only look at these issues from your perspective, and this is fundamentally different from the outermost acceptable standard of the earth human beings. I have, however, thought to myself about your explanations and have recognized that you think and act correctly. You bear a very great responsibility with regard to your task, which you truly are only able to fulfill if you move in your anti-materialism and in your relevant modesty. But this only became clear to me just now, when you spoke in your excitement. My own comments were very inconsiderate. Still, you shouldn't have to live in want. No work on the earth is currently as worthy of its wages as yours. Therefore, the Earth human beings should give you your wage and feed you and your family and give you what is necessary. Billy says I can't demand that, Pat.